Episode 10. The Morning Exchange. Off in the distance, I could hear the morning salute droning from the horns coming from the base, a faint melody they played every morning. I awoke curled up on my pile of blankets. The sun was up already. I reached for my phone sitting in my shoe. I unwrapped it and let it boot up. There were no messages, but a few notifications from social media. Once I liked and commented back, I lay there an hour playing a game where you hunt for resources and make a camp. I slept with the door open to let the cool air in. It did get really cold at night, but if you could manage to trap that colder air inside before the sun hit, you could buy a few more comfortable hours before it got hot. I got up and pulled the board over my entryway. I poured a small bowl with some water, washed up, then washed the garments from yesterday in it, and got dressed in something fresh. I left the clothes to dry on the flat surfaces. They dried quickly and also kept the air cooler for a short while. For the next few hours, I read in bed under the light of one of the skylights. It was generally quiet around this time, as most people had similar morning rituals. People didn't start milling around until midday. I had gotten a half-used notebook in trade last night for a meal and flipped through it. It appeared to be filled with mostly bad poetry and some drawings. Not too far in, I found myself staring at one of those trippy flowers. It had an eyeball in the center and overemphasized thorns. I set it down. I drank some cold tea left in the pot from last night, scrolled through social media some more, and then fell back asleep. This time, I woke up with my stomach growling. It was still fairly cool inside, but I needed to start moving. I grabbed my bowl and put my chopsticks in my hair in a bun, then came out to the center ring to find Ray already at it. It looked like he'd taken some scissors to his facial hair and done a pretty good job of cutting it short. He still had my pot with the leftover rice and beans, and now had his big pan in the fire with some oil heating up. Not many people joined us for lunch usually, and today was no exception. I went and grabbed a can of mixed vegetables and dumped them in the pot, hoping the liquid would soften up some of the hardened rice. I sat there staring for a minute, then told him to wait, and I'd see if I could get us some eggs. I went inside and scooped a cup of rice into a plastic grocery bag and twisted it up tight. Then I left down our alleyway toward the main road. A few roads down was where Helena lived with her chickens. She had a homestead like anyone else, but she had 8 chickens that lived in her area with her. They were loud but cute. She was happy to trade the rice for 2 eggs. I scratched a brown chicken on the top of its head, and it closed its eyes for a moment before rejecting any further attention. Being a lover of dinosaurs, it always fascinated me watching the chicken's eye movement and little jerks, something so predatory about them, despite only hunting seeds these days. Some egg-fried rice was exactly what this morning called for. Episode 11, Taco Soup Night. Ray finished cooking. John came out, handed me a can of those little hot dogs, and joined us. He was the only one, which was just fine. It made for a hearty lunch. I spent the rest of the day pulling my wagon out the quarter-mile to the mesa and filled my cans with dirt. I made 3 trips and got 1 bag completed. For now, I lined them along one of the fence walls. Having accomplished so much today, I was feeling extra eager for a good meal tonight. Some good company, good conversation, a little less heat. Ray started shuffling things around about 5. He poked his head in, then his body followed, holding the pot with both hands. "Please, sir, can I have some beans?" he said to me with his head lowered. I didn't think he'd ever actually seen or read Oliver Twist. He did this often, but it never landed. I still smiled and dumped them in. "That's more than usual," he said. I smiled again, raising my eyebrow in a way that said my plans were secret. He knew me well enough to know I wouldn't say them just now. As the beans cooked, I pulled a few more blankets than usual to my spot, making a nice little nest and a few pillows. After a while, I brought out the rice and dumped it in. This also was more than usual. Ray tended the cooking and burned whatever trash was brought out. I went back inside and gathered more items, and when everything was ready, I yelled, "Ray!" It didn't take long for him to poke his head around the corner. I smiled big. He cocked an eyebrow and gave a half smile. I set a can of tomatoes on the table. He nodded. I set a can of corn on the table. He smiled. I set a can of chicken on the table. He smiled even larger as he reached to grab the items. Then I presented the best part, setting 3 packets of taco seasoning on the table. He let out a "fuck yeah" and rushed to grab it all. I followed behind with the can opener. I opened cans and began dumping them in. Ray opened the packets of seasoning, pouring them in very close to the water so none of the powder got picked up by the wind. He then swished a little water in each empty pack and poured that in as well before burning the wrappers. As Ray stirred, he sang, "Taco, taco soup," to the tune of Macho Man. "I want to eat the taco soup," he continued singing, with a little wiggle of his body. The smell hit hard and quick. People began stirring. Anna carried out her papasan chair and a blanket. Dave dragged out the little cooler he always sat on. Darcy brought me a bag of empty cans, the first of many, I was sure. Even Carol came out, bringing with her a can of beef stew. It was a big one, so I gave her a credit on a future meal. Ivan, John, and half a dozen others made their way out. I received in trade a candy bar, a tube of lip balm, and several bottles of water. A guy named Jason from a little down the road brought a mug that said "Editing Day," with a print of a camera on the other side. I stared into the lens of the camera, then looked up at him, squinting, wondering what his game was. He smiled pleasantly. I continued to stare him down until he awkwardly turned and went and found a spot. I set the mug on my roof, facing it away from us.